Lorelai runs away. Her mask dissolving away, and picking up the colonel, the obnoxious bureaucratic colonel, from having fun with another one of these shapeshifters. Very great thing about the movie Valerian is that he picks up every single one of these elements and just kind of mutates them a little bit, mixing them up. So he basically kind of adapts the book almost in its entirety, but it just kind of slightly changes things just a little bit. One of my favorite sequences is this where Lorelai grabs the jellyfish alien that if you put it over your head, you actually get to experience some visions, which basically make you discover things that otherwise you won't be able to know. And the great comforting here is that she's basically putting the fish over her head, but she's basically fighting against it at the same time. So it's a great, wonderful way that Mézières finds to depict this scene. I love it. Now, I would say that most of the books in the Valerian series are quite cinematic, but the Ambassador of the Shadows is particularly cinematic in his panels. If we go back here in these pages where Lorelai meets the Centaur people, um, in this page here, where like many others, we have a little bit of a talking head moment with some plot points and exposition being delivered. It's always great to look for original ways, different ways to shoot your characters. So never repeat the same characters in the same position or same angle in two panels, in two consecutive panels. The brilliancy of Mézières trying to find us a variety of shots to present these characters, and this particular one here with a Lorelei and the bureaucratic guy casting long shadows on the pavement. But then going back to where we were, right here, Mézières finding that the best to illustrate the vision, the dreamlike status of Lorelei, is using this very light, very broken down hatching lines, very light. And here, obviously, we start getting a the plot device that we saw in the beginning, which is the spaceship of the shadows, which is this alien civilization, which basically at the end reveals that they were the core builders of the Point Central space station. And at the same time, we see what happens to Valerian and the Ambassador just as a Lorelei, just as the squid-like animal alien blows up. A new character is introduced here in these pages, one that the film portrays as well. Very very close to what is actually on the pages, and she has to use a poor little animal once again, the replicator, and see the attention again that the backgrounds evolve throughout the story. It's not just that they change every time there is a change of environment, meaning from species to species, from alien enclosure to alien enclosure, but also within a certain area, a clear, detailed and logical approach to the environment. As Lorelei tries to get another one to continue her kind of vision quest, her animal is really so once again, we go into the dream state, which is right head, what we pick up, Mézières picks up with the burst, but at the same time the burst becomes the little gadget that Valerian is using to break free from his pod, from his frozen-like state where from when they were kidnapped. Falls on to release the ambassador, and again we have the spaceship and where they evidently seem to be. But again, this is a great way that you still have this dreamlike sequence, but at the same time, it's a straight retelling of what actually happened. Here at the final shot, I like that the bowels of the ship, and you presume it is the bowels of the length of the ship. They're going along the length of the ship, because as here in this shot, is in flight with the bottom visible to us, and then here he's kind of tilted with the top closer to us, and these little holes here, they look like the portholes along the body, and this long dinosaur-like body is kind of elongated and replicated here. And the great thing is this almost looks like Pinocchio in the belly of the whale, so very organic, like ship. Wonderful shot. And as we get closer to the end of the book, immediately after that page where Valerian and Ambassador kind of slide down the belly of the ship, we have this very interesting sequence of panels. The ship kind of entering a vortex, which allows her to go through a kind of similar to the 2001 Stargate sequence, faster than light, and crossing planetary systems, and ending up here in what looks to be like a paradise coast with an island. So basically the dream sequence of Lorelei gave access to the present, to a present sequence, to a sequence set in a present time, in which we finally see the outcome of the trip that Valerian and the Ambassador have been going through by finally arriving at this place, the planet without a name, where the shadows, this tribe of very pleasant aliens, resides. Now in this page here, the purpose of why the Ambassador was kidnapped and who this mysterious tribe of aliens are, the shadows, is finally revealed. They explain that for them time has ceased to have any meaning, and they also explain that once they were a planetary species like all the other planetary species, they are familiar with war, they were familiar with evolution, but then one day they ceased to do that, and their home planet was destroyed, vanished. And while they explain that, Mézières shows their day-to-day living as they live peacefully in this environment. And here, this is probably the most interesting panel, as we have almost like a crystal-like structure, which is almost like a holographic image, in which through it we can actually see the horizon line and the rising sun, or the setting sun. And they explain they were part of the Galactic Council that created the Point Central space station. And not only that, they were actually the first cell, the premier junction of the actual station. Now, the reason they kidnapped the ambassador is because they want to force the hand of the Terrans of the human species, which is currently located in Point Central Station. They believe the humans are a warring species, like many others across the universe, but they believe the humans are the basis of many problems that perhaps many of the other civilizations do not have. And they actually want the humans to depart, to leave Point Central. So is an ultimatum. And as the aliens offer Valerian and the ambassador hospitality, taken by the hand of the children to the interior of their homes in order to listen to some stories, and to say that the return to the outer edges of the Point Central Station will be much faster than their trip there. The third panel breaks down into these watery, wavery cells into pack to Loreline's dreamlike machine, with her pet animal finally completely depleted to a great effort, filling in this cup, as we had just seen a few pages ago, was being filled in at great effort with just a few coins dripping down as he exercised quite painfully his bowel movement. And she now says, well, that's it for you, you're done. And this guy goes very happy with a full glass, a full fishbowl of coins. In principle, this is the last time she has to use them, as now they finally know where to go, to the central point, or Point Central. So one last trip through the ruins and the catacombs of this very ancient space station. Now, though it is slightly cryptic, the movie actually does a very good job in carrying on and presenting this idea of a civilization long lost that is actually at the heart of a galactic center. And here, though, is slightly different in the original of this story. This civilization called the Shadows does not actually have a grudge, a personal grudge against humankind just because of a long forgotten war. This is just basically a kind of criticism to diplomacy between countries. Pretty much a ironic take on what is the United Nations and how some countries will always back up other countries, and about everything that goes on behind, in the backstage of politics. Although this passage from the ancient ruins inside a futuristic space station into this passageway, which is obviously modern and futuristic, and then finally to what is perhaps the most wonderful shot in the whole book, the most wonderful panel, really is something else to behold. In this amazing panel, taking full advantage of the female form and having this cybernetic passageway transform into a crustacean shell with just below knee-deep water, and then a long extension of sea with more shells, mountains almost like replicating these shapes, and beyond a blue sky, flamingo birds obviously, and a huge moon taking over the horizon. It's just an amazing, beautiful, beautiful panel. And obviously they are quite intrigued by this change of events as they carry on through this very low tide a wonderful sea that you always have a foothold into finally the homestead of the Shadows, where they finally have a chance to reunite with Valerian. Following up that beautiful shot from the previous page, there's a very nice panel here with a lovely embrace of the heroes, and following up the also very fraternal-like reunion between the ambassador and his bureaucratic colonel. Valerian will explain later what is happening. Now they make their way back to where they came from, almost like the TARDIS, this shell, and back to the almost non-welcoming now other sections of Point Central Station. The ambassador is about to do the speech that he had all along planned to do, meeting the Galactic Council. Ambassador enters into his little pod to deliver his speech, surrounded by other alien representatives. I'm pretty sure that Star Wars took a little bit of inspiration from there. Again, the Long Shadows casting, it's present here as well. And after another meeting with our old friends, which are actually being under arrest, the ambassador ends up exiting his speech conference a little bit too early, to which moment he relates that the mankind, the human representation in Point Central has been expelled. They've been expelled because the Shadows do think they are more armed than good, and they've been using a lot of all the other aliens and pressuring them to kind of force the hand of the humans into, or force the hands of the other aliens into expel the human race from Point Central. Ambassador doesn't know very much what to do. This nice get together with the technical and military heads of mankind kind of reminds another scene from The Empire Strikes Back. And finally, Laureline takes the reign and says, okay, very well, if they don't want us here, then it's time to leave. And here we are, right at the end of the book, the story coming to a close. And many have argued over the years that this is almost like an anti-climax, almost like an unsatisfying end, as the human colony gets on their ships, obviously with Valerian ship right here in the foreground, and heads off into space, probably back to Earth or to other human colonies throughout space. But I think it's a great ending. It's at least a fit ending. I mean, the whole tone from the beginning of the book, and as I mentioned a couple of times before, is slight satire and definitive criticism on bureaucracy and politics. And I think Point Central is really the United Nations, and is immediate criticism aimed at leaders, world leaders, and the hypocrisy of world politics. Is obviously, nothing to be surprised by, since the two authors are two Frenchmen that have worked and done this kind of work during the 60s and the 70s. And obviously, being Valerian, a comic book from the 60s and the 70s, there's also a lot of allusions to, drugs and LSD, with several escapades that Laureline does throughout the book with her dream machine sequence. And finally, the last shot is our nice little friend being revitalized by gamma rays or something. Yes, so a fitting conclusion to a great book. If you're thinking in purchasing a copy of Valerian, I would strongly advise to purchase this one right here. Obviously available in the original language, because it's the anniversary edition that was released to accompany the release of the movie Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. And this particular edition has an additional 10 pages at the end, which basically explore the themes and the ideas precisely of what we've been discussing in terms of the plot and the script, and also goes over the work done in the book, with obviously the emphasis on both the authors, Pierre Christine and Jean-Claude Mézières. And this is the full collection available for purchase as well, with the omnibus, the trade paperbacks, getting quite a few of the books together. So all in all, a great work, very well accomplished, with the imagination of Mézières, depicting environments and aliens, really going overboard, with over 40 pages of truly astounding imagination and art design. And the script of Pierre Christine really being mysterious and full of captivating moments and full of interesting characters and natural and at the same time awkward relationships between the characters. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this journey through Valerian and the Ambassador of the Shadows, and I hope that now you probably got to know a special work, and if you already knew it and you weren't so inclined to explore it a little bit further, that now you are finally inclined to take another chance and visit or revisit this great work of the comic book medium, and one of the, to my opinion, greatest graphic novels, if not the world, and at least made in France. So for everyone that took his time to watch this video, thank you very much. I hope that I've done some fair justice to the book. I've done what I could within the time that I'm allowed to, so I don't make something too long and a little bit too overbearing for anyone watching. If you be interested, it'd be very kind of you to like this video and subscribe to my channel, so I can continue doing videos like this over other graphic novels and other comic book series of many authors, many publishers from around the world. Thank you very much, and until another time of the comic book drawing board. Bye-bye.